Welcome to A Second Helping with Allison Bartow, a wedding photography podcast with a focus on second shooting. Welcome back to Save, Delete, Dodge, and Burn with a wedding recap. So first part here is before the wedding. I'm in the car on my way down to the city. I had a couple contact me not that long ago, I want to say less than 2 months, about shooting their wedding. It's a Monday down in the city, and I've had 1 or 2 phone conversations with them. They seem very nice. They are getting ready at the Notary Hotel in Philly and then have 2 hours booked at the Philadelphia Academy of Fine Arts. So they actually scheduled me for 4 hours from 12 to 4. So we are going to meet at the Notary Hotel. They did not want getting ready photos, and they didn't have any detail photos that they wanted. That wasn't important to them. Meeting at the Notary Hotel. They want to take some pictures in the hotel because they really like it. It's very unique. And then they wanted to get photos walking to the museum, the Academy of Fine Arts. So they wanted to do like City Hall, the Love Statue. So we have about 2 hours, and then we're going to be at Academy of Fine Arts. So scheduled them, and then I started to get a little nervous because I am not a city gal. I don't really know my way around the city. And so I started thinking about the pressure of multitasking, navigating 6 people, because it's the bride, the groom, and then her mom and dad and his mom and brother. So 6 people, escorting them around the city that I'm not great with, and then posing them and doing the photographs, and then like small talk and just, establishing rapport. And it felt like it might be a little bit overwhelming. And so I reached out to Dave, that I second shoot with a lot. He lives in the city. He's shoots in the city a ton. He's fabulous at those iconic Philadelphia wedding shots. So he was kind enough to say yes to help me on a Monday afternoon for a few hours. So I'm looking forward to that. But then I started thinking about it, and I feel like I'm also a little bit nervous because I'm like, I've got to perform really well for Dave. So it'll be great, and I'm looking forward to it. But I'm a little bit nervous because I realized I haven't shot a wedding with my own clients since 2021. Every wedding I shot last year was either as a second or as an associate. So associate shooting is very similar to shooting your own wedding, but it's still not the same, just because, I'm the only one who's had contact with these guys. And it's unique because we don't really have much of an agenda or a timeline. I did just get an email as I got in the car from the groom checking in, saying they were at the hotel, they're getting ready, and he said he will see us at noon and he'll come down to meet us, and then we'll do the first look. So that's good. This is the first I'm hearing of a first look. I'm glad they're doing it. I'm just going to roll with it. I think you can get nervous if there's too much of an agenda, and you can get nervous if there isn't enough of an agenda. So we're just going to roll with it and see what happens. Sometimes people have a ton of shots that they want to get done, and the agenda just looks really overwhelming. It's like an unrealistic timeline, and you just have to roll with it and do the best that you can. And sometimes when there isn't an agenda at all, it almost makes me nervous because I don't know if they have something in their head that they hadn't expressed earlier. Like I said, he's just now mentioning a first look, that's great. I'm glad there's something traditional happening, because even when I asked about like any heirlooms, if they had anything special that had been, passed down from a family member that they might want documented, they both kind of said no. So, and that's fine. I just, want to make sure that I'm getting what's important to them. So we'll see. We're lucky. The weather is going to be around 55, 60 degrees. It looks like cloudy, maybe some sun. So that's all ideal. And the other thing is, I feel like I don't know if I would say overpacked, but because I don't know what to expect, I brought a couple of light stands. I just brought my short kind of travel man Frodo, the little 7-foot one. But then I also brought the 9-foot drop stand, because I don't know for the ceremony at the Academy of Fine Arts what the lighting situation is going to look like. Obviously, those locations aren't known for an abundance of natural light. So I don't want to show up with like one light stand. I've got plenty of flashes with me, but I don't want to only have one flash. I'm not going to like just light the bride or try to flash them straight on. So I'm just trying to be prepared. Also, we'll be dragging our gear around for like 2 hours in the city, but it's not crazy. It's just like within 2 or 3 blocks. So it's not like when we have a huge wedding party and we're racing all over the place and getting on and off the trolley and all of that. So I'm feeling like it's going to be less chaotic. So we shall see. We have a lot of things going in our favor. And like I said, I'm a little bit nervous though, because it's been a while since it's like my own total wedding. All right. So I will be checking in after the wedding. Okay. In the car on 76, headed home. It went very well. I got there super early, got the lay of the land. There was a whole side of the hotel that I hadn't checked out when I had been there before. So I scoped out a few areas. Dave got there, I think a little earlier than he thought he would get there. And so he and I were talking. We walked around a little bit, spotted some, checked out some sites together for possible portraits. And then all of a sudden the groom was downstairs. And so he was supposed to meet us at noon, and it was like 11:38 maybe. So we chatted, we walked around, we found a first look spot together. Then we kind of just came up with a loose game plan. He and Dave went out front to it was actually the back, on a sidewalk with a nice overhang. So it was shaded. So it was a nice even light. And then I met the bride at the elevator, and I wanted to meet her because I'd never met her before. So that way I got to introduce myself. And then all of the parents, so all 3 of the parents were there and kind of hanging around and watching the first look. So that went well. And then we did some portraits. Dave was so helpful. Like he had like a good idea to do the one shot on the bar. And then, he helped setting up lights and helping me test the lights. And it was just the best decision, and I'm so happy that he said yes and was able to be there. He was just such an asset. When we talked about where we wanted to go in the city, he was just able to shepherd us over to different places. He knew what was under construction, which way to go around, the best side of City Hall to go on. I would have picked, I think, the other side because of the way that the light was coming in, but the median was more narrow. He's just shot so many times there. So it definitely was a huge help for me. In addition, he threw his light stand in my light stand bag and then just carried that. So that was one other thing that I was worried about, dragging my roller bag, my messenger bag, and then having a light stand, because I just didn't know what the lighting situation was going to be like in PAFA. So just him doing that was a huge help. As far as the groom was very nice and very soft-spoken. The bride was as well. She had like a medium length veil, so it wasn't dragging on the ground. She didn't have a train. Her dress was really pretty. It was like a lightweight, so it wasn't like, it didn't have to be navigated, if you will, and it wasn't difficult for her to move, which was really nice. So she had like a reasonable stacked heel on, so she wasn't struggling with the cobblestones and all the streets. So there was just none of that. We got, I think, most of like all of the iconic shots that we talked about getting, the hotel lobby shots that they were interested in. The one that I thought would be cool, it's like this neon sculpture. I had checked it out and I told Dave about it. And then when I mentioned it to the groom, he was like, oh yeah, we don't care for that. And I was like, oh, okay. So Dave and I got a good laugh out of that, because Dave was like, he didn't like your idea. And I was like, yeah, no. But that's what I said to Dave when we got there. I said, I'm just going to roll with stuff and throw things out. And, if they're not into it, we'll just move on. And I think I said that to the groom as well. Like, hey, if we make a suggestion and you're just not feeling it, let us know and we'll move on to the next thing. But they were very easygoing. And they were really sweet. They were like so impressed when we like set up lights to do the portraits in the one area of the hotel, and they made some nice comments. So that was kind of them. And then it was direct sun outside. So the forecast had said cloudy, but it was like a beautiful day. So that was the biggest challenge, the direct sun, whether it was like in their faces. So with the Love Park statue, you really can only shoot it one way. So I had them angle a little bit. So I tried a bunch of different angles. And then Dave suggested we go around to the other side and have them stand and get low and do, he like helped light her face up a little bit and then just do more of a wide angle with City Hall real far in the background. So he was just so helpful because it's a lot, especially when you're like in the city and dealing with all that, and then all of the bags and coming up with ideas and, you know, communicating with them. And because it was the smaller family, they were there. We wrapped up pictures around 1:40 and made our way over to PAFA, and it was perfect timing. The lady like opened the door, she saw us coming, and so we were able to go through there. Dave had speculated, and he was right, that there were actually a bunch of skylights, which I last night was definitely thinking there's no way there's going to be any light, like it's a museum, they don't like light in there that they're not controlling. But sure enough, there was. So it was really nice because then during the ceremony, we didn't have to worry about flash at all. But Dave had an idea for like setting up flash on the main grand stairs there. So we did that shot together. And it was just so helpful to have his perspective, him helping with the lights, just practicing getting the lights set before the bride and groom were there. So I can't imagine doing it as one person. And that was it. It was a very sweet ceremony. We were able to squeeze in family portraits right before it. We had like 14 minutes. It was great. So we got those done. And then there was a sweet ceremony and we were done. So we really shot for a little less than 3.5 hours, I would say. All in all, a success. I'm going to download the images when I get home, take a look at those, see what I think. My first reaction would be what went well. They were really great. They were open-minded to things. There weren't a lot of curveballs. I didn't know about the first look until I got in the car, which was fine. But I did get a little nervous that maybe they had a whole list of things in their head that they just hadn't told me about. It was fine. They didn't ask for anything that we hadn't been expecting. So there were no surprises. So that went really well. Things that went wrong, really just the challenging sun. I had brought a reflector with me and I left it in the car intentionally because I just didn't know how much stuff I should be lugging around. That may have worked out. I think in the future I would probably just take it if I saw that it was like the direct sun like this. Like that may have helped. What I would do more of, I think working with Dave and just seeing how he loves off-camera flash and doing just like a nicely lit portrait. I want to work more on that because he just, as he's scouting out locations, you can just see he's thinking of how to create that really beautiful portrait. So I definitely want to start thinking more like that instead of the available light that's there. And what I want to do less of, I'll have to think about that. I have to make sure I'm not getting stuck with like the same few poses. They were a very nice, I want to say like kind of conservative couple. They weren't like a loud, boisterous, goofy, they weren't like that. So they just weren't as demonstrative maybe. They just weren't kind of all over each other. So that, I think that makes me then more hesitant to have them like kissing or just being overly affectionate. I don't know. That's just, like I kind of freeze up a little bit. So I have to work on that. But I'll say that's it for now. I'm going to download the photos, check them out, and then I will check back in with more feedback and thoughts after I've slept on everything. All right, welcome back to the last part of the recap. I have downloaded all of the images, and Dave and I shot a total of 2,452 images. My final gallery has 422, which ends up being 17% of the images that we shot. And that's typically where I end up, right around 16, 17, 18%. I think everything I said before just kind of stands. Like it went really well. I was happy that they didn't have any expectations that they hadn't discussed with me ahead of time. I know I had said I had been a little bit nervous because they didn't have too many things on their list. So I got concerned that maybe they did and they were going to spring it on us when we got there, but they didn't. And it went really well. I would say the most difficult part, as we discussed, was the lighting, the direct sun, and then having some static locations that we couldn't just turn the way that we wanted to. One being the Love Park statue,
and then also City Hall. We had the more desirable median, so you can't change where that is in relation to City Hall and the sun. Those came out. I would say the most challenging part for me is still the posing and me feeling rushed. So I have to work on just taking my time and making sure they're comfortable and that they understand that what I'm doing. I think I'm putting more pressure on myself than I need to. They're comfortable. Everything's kind of a blur to them anyway. So I know with a recent engagement session, I felt like I was kind of going from place to place to place because I wanted to hit all these different places for them. And I think it doesn't need to be as many places, and just to have a few locations and just really nail the shots when you're there. Dave was a huge help with lighting and also coming up with suggestions. Just being in the city and at these locations, I hadn't been to PAFA in years. And so that was kind of all new, and he had really good suggestions. So that was nice. So again, he was just invaluable. Having his input, having him there to talk to, having him, help with the lights and the bags and all of that. So that was really tremendous. And then just with all the other people, being able to have him there, to help interact with them as well. And I know that the couple was really happy when I'd emailed them to say I was bringing a second shooter who was really lived in the city and was really familiar with the area. And that was one of the things that the bride said right when I met her, that she was really excited that I was bringing a second person. The other thing, as I was going through the photos, and I know you can shoot a wedding one person, and I know like Susan Stribling for the longest time has done it just herself with an assistant who really just holds the light for her, and maybe does some grip and grins during cocktail hour. Once I put all the photos together and I was going through, it really just felt like it had more of a 3D, like a multi-dimensional impact. So just, you've got like the normal first look and you've got the multiple angles, but just after we were done and we were taking some portraits there, I have my portraits, but then to be able to go through in chronological order and see my angle and my viewpoint, and then switch over to my second shooter's angle and viewpoint, and knowing that it's capturing that same moment, but just from a different angle, maybe a little bit different lighting. That was really nice. It really just kind of builds it out. And also this was a shorter day, so I think maybe that helped to just give it more layers. There's some nice, just candid moments of them. So even when they're like looking at me for portraits, just knowing that we're getting another angle there, and it paints the story, because I feel like that when you're seeing his shot, you're remembering, oh, that's when we were taking, this photo. For the ceremony, obviously having those multiple angles is really important. And because of the ceremony venue, you were able to kind of go like 360 around it. So you could shoot them up on, like from the back, up on the railing, the kind of the balcony area that they were. So it was nice knowing that we were able to capture that, all the way around. So that really just built out the album, I feel like. And so the biggest thing, I think they were comfortable. I had said before, they weren't like an overly emotive couple. And for me, then I tend to get, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but not as comfortable trying to like encourage them to be more affectionate. So it's just a lot. I feel like when you've got people looking at you and then you're encouraging people to like, oh, kiss her here and kiss her on the forehead. So I just have to kind of work on that and just get more comfortable with that and realize that they're looking for that direction. I think I do a good job of not making people uncomfortable. So I know that when you're getting people into different poses, you never want to say like, oh, yeah, you know what, that's not working. So no matter what, take the photo and then be like, great, now let's move into this. So they need that positive reinforcement all along. So I'm always doing that. But I think I can also continue to make them more comfortable. So you want to be talking the whole time and just giving them that reinforcement. But like just when you're setting up trickier shots, I feel like I'm putting all this pressure on myself, and they're just there talking and they're not really noticing as much as I feel like people are, especially like in the moment. Like when I look back on it, I'm like, I just really was making it more difficult for myself. And then I would say there was one shot when we were at Love Park where there was construction going on. So there were guys in like the bright green jackets, the vests, the safety vests. And so we were trying to like position ourselves and angle ourselves. And Dave was really helpful. He said, another shot I get is I go around the other side of this. There was like a fountain and sort of like a splash pad kind of thing, shoot through there, coming up on the other side of the statue. And I was like, that's great. So he was helping position them, which was fantastic. He had a light there. I went around. And so it was really helpful. But at the same time, I'm trying to figure out like, okay, what is his vision? What is it that he normally takes? Because he was helping me. But at the same time, I'm like, trying to figure out the best lens and like kind of read his mind, because it was a great suggestion on his part. And then we had the bright direct sun, and then he was holding, an off-camera flash to kind of fill in light for them. So it was like I started getting, nervous and trying to just get everything down. And they were fine. Like they were laughing. I think he was taking a call from his family about lunch and all of that. So I just have to keep that in mind, like in the moment. But overall, I think the pictures came out really nice. We have a lot of great options and different angles. It's a very unique venue. So I think they're very distinct pictures. It was nice to be in there with the artwork and the different exhibits. The family was really happy. So there was, no unexpected hiccups from that. And again, I just think having that a second shooter there, especially someone who lives in the city and has been all around, was just so helpful. So that's where I am. Like I said, my biggest thing I think is just getting more comfortable with posing and asking people, physically to get into different positions and to be affectionate. So that's just something I have to work on. So that would be my big takeaway. But other than that, it was really great. And like I said, the pictures look good. And Dave and I had a nice time. It was fun to work with him as always, but it was fun to be like roles reversed. So I look forward to shooting with him again. And I look forward to shooting in the city again. Thanks again for tuning in.